Okay, so let's the substitute drawing you have already seen it. How you can change like if you make multiple number of drawings, um, you can actually you can go to the library and from there you can actually change all these drawings. So like we do in level strip in OpenToons. So this is the level strip here. So let's say we are in this frame and the fourth frame, and if I change these drawings like this, it's going to be changed in our display. And this is it. Actually you can do the same from here, or let's say make it 3 and the same thing. So you can have multiple drawings, and all the drawings is going to be stored here. And so let's see the X sheet view. So if we go to the X sheet view, if we don't find the X sheet view, we can find it from here, from window menu, find the X sheet. And here we also have those all the same thing. Like if you want to add a hole, unfortunately if you want to add a hole, if you click this icon, this arrow icon, if you click and drag like this, it's going to actually replace all the drawing with the hold. So not like OpenToon. So if you want to add a hold in the first frame, so what you have to do is actually select the other all these frames and move them down like this. And to move them down, you have these dots in the left side, and you can actually expand the window like this if you need it to. And then click and drag all of them, and now you can actually add a hold. So the same thing actually happening here. If you are comfortable in Xsheet, you can just do that. And let's say the very basic options like adding column, that's the same thing. Adding a layer, here it's called column. Deleting column, and let's say you want to duplicate selected column, the same thing is going to happen here. You can actually merge two columns, so that's a very useful option. Let's say you have a extra drawing, and let's set the exposure, and again, and if you select two drawings, you have this option, the merge selected layers, and the same thing is here. You can merge two columns together. Okay. Then all the drawings is going to be merged together. Okay. um, is there a kind of entire region is getting recorded, right? So why is it appearing? Okay. And you can change the drawing from here also, like you do in OpenToon. You can make it 3 or whatever you need. The same thing you can do. Okay, there is no 35, so let's add 5. There is no 5 actually. So basically the same thing you can do here. Hmm? But there is, you cannot scrub through this area, so to do that you have to do like this. So this is it about the X sheet. And actually few things that you can do here which you cannot there, which is you can add an annotation column. So you can actually go to this option, add column. Add column. From there you can actually add an annotation, and here actually you can make your laddering and planning stuff and whatever you want to do. And also you can actually, if you go, you can see, if you click here once, you get the you get the eraser, actually. Why is it not erasing? It should, oh, because maybe it's because of the pen, so I have to use the other side. No, if I go to this, if I use my mouse, then I get the eraser. Okay. Anyway, and then we have this mouse normal cursor view, then you can double click and type certain things if we need. And this one is going to be very helpful if you are doing animation in ToonBoom. And also you can change the pen color. Also you can change the color of the pen from here if you need it to. Let's make bright red. And so this is it. And you can add a column for the audios also, and there's basically the same thing, importing an audio layer. So go to here and import sound. Desktop I have this sound, I don't know what it is, so you can import it here. And you can see in the column view it's not showing. So to get the audio, this what is called the waveform view. So go to the sound display and go to waveform. Now you are going to get the waveform. I don't know why it is not showing. It should be. Increase this thing. Actually, it should show. Let's okay. Let's import it again. I'm in the fast frame. Now let's import the sound, and we have the waveform. Now you can actually, I don't know why these options are not showing. There should be an option for increasing the. Okay, I have to turn on the waveform view. Now it should be there. So I can increase this amount. It's not actually increasing the volume. It's just giving you the wider display. So this is it. And actually, let's disconnect this thing. Oh, so the sound was off actually. This is the sound on off button, and this button is when you are scrubbing the timeline. If you want to listen to your sound, then or not. If you turn it off, then you're not going to hear any sound when you are scrubbing. And this is it for Xsheet. Because all the other things, all the basic things you know, I mean, you can change the Xsheet drawings from here, and as well as the layer view. After that, let's go to Keyframe Animation. So let's delete all these things, right click and delete, and I'm going to create a new drawing layer. There I'm going to create, let's say, a rectangular shape. Maybe I'm going to fill it with certain color. Make it green. Okay. So let's select, and the same methodology applies here. Like if you are using this selection tool, by using this selection tool you can actually move a shape but not a layer. That means this changing of the value, this is which you can actually add from here, like this 37 or whatever it is. It's actually, if you click once outside and it's gone, that means it's actually relative to the last position. So that means you cannot key this thing by using this tool. In Flash, I believe that there is no separate tool for animation or selection, but other animation softwares, they have dedicated to other tools. One is for the selection, to move around the object in your view, and another is the animation tool. That one is this one. This is called the transform tool, and you have to check this option, which is called the animate mode. Otherwise there will be no keyframe set automatically. So this is the selection tool. You are not going to use that, so it's always better to make the object in the middle of the composition, and then you have this tool which is the transform tool, and here actually we have this option. You can change the pivot point anytime to the middle, and in the recent version of OpenToons we have that option which is called I mean if you select the edit tool, you get all the separate different options for position, rotation, and scaling, and all these things. But now you have an option called all. That means you can actually do all the transformation. You don't need to go and select specific tools for that. And here in this transform tool, you can do all the transformation from here, and also you have the separate tools for that. If you want to use the rotation tool or position and scaling, you have that, or skewing. Anyway, so by using this tool, let's go to the start of this thing. You can see that actually where I have created the frame, this is the frame I have created, so let's bring it here, and you can see one red button, red icon have been created here, which means that keyframe has been already set here, because the animate mode is turned on. If you turn it off, then it's not going to happen. I'm going to show you later on. So I'm sorry. So let's move the pivot into the middle, and let's move it to the left side, and here I'm going to, let's say here I'm going to let's stop the entire animation timeline here. So here if this option is turned off, by the way it's going to be turned on by default when you select the transform tool, but be careful about it. If it is turned off, no animation key is going to be set here automatically, so you have to turn this thing on at first. Now if you move it, and you can see one animation, linear animation keyframe has been set, and obviously the motion is now completely linear. You can see this is the linear keyframe interpolation. That's how it displays. So if you want a hold keyframe, then what you have to do, you can just select the entire animation by you can shift select or click and drag like this, and do this thing, which is the hold keyframe. I believe this one is the set stop motion keyframe. So that means there is no connection between them, so that means it will directly jump to this point. Okay, the same thing, same methodology applies here. So to create another keyframe, either you move this thing, or you can use the shortcut which is F6. You can see another keyframe is set here, or what you can do, you can use the shortcut icon which is this one, insert keyframe. You can insert a keyframe, or you can delete a keyframe, and so you can see animation, you can see the animation here, and I hope that I hope all of you remember the concept of global keyframe and specific keyframe for specific parameters. In ToonBoom, actually what happens is by default you create a global keyframe. That means when you set a keyframe, you are actually adding keyframe to all the parameters like rotation, scaling, skewing, position, everything. And where can we see that? Actually, if for each and every layer you get this plus icon. If you click on it, it's actually going to expand you, and you can see all the parameters, position X, position Y, position Z. That means you can move it in Z space, and rotation angle, then scale X, Y, and then skew. So all the options are there. You can move these things from here also. If you don't want to use the keyframes, you can change the scale from here, and the difference between adding keyframe here and changing it from here, or let's say here, is you are not setting a global keyframe. Instead of, you are actually creating keyframe for only that parameter. So let's actually delete this keyframe, I'm not going to click and hit delete, because that will delete the entire cell. I'm going to click here and hit this icon to delete the keyframe. Now let's say I want to add a keyframe for the let's say the scaling only. I don't want to mess up the scaling. Add or don't want to add another keyframe for other parameters. So let's change the scaling from here, and though it is showing a keyframe had been set here, because if you collapse the display it will show here, but when you expand it you can see only keyframe had been set for x and z, y scaling. So the scaling will happen, but there will be no other keyframes. And let's say we want to add some rotation, and rotation keyframe that we can add. And okay, so this is basic this is setting basic linear keyframes. Now we have shortcut for to go to the previous and next keyframe like this. And now we need to know the interpolations. This is a linear animation, so you need to add some interpolation. So for that, actually let's create the ball bouncing thing, right? So because that is going to be a perfect example. So I'm going to delete all these keyframes. So and let's actually delete this shape also, and let's create something like this. I'm going to delete this keyframe also. So let's say this is a ball, and so I'm going to set the anchor point here at the bottom of the ball. And now I'm going to set my first keyframe here, and my second keyframe, let's say in frame I don't know, 30. So in frame 30 you can move this triangle also. And I'm going to set another keyframe here, so set key or the shortcut F5 F6. And now in the middle, which is going to be the 15th frame, I believe this is the 15th frame, yes. And here I'm going to change the Y position only, so I can do it from here or I can do it from the view also. So I'm going to move it in the Y position. Oh sorry, it's the Z position. So in the Y position, okay. And now you can see only keyframe created is for the X or Y position. And actually, let's create a global keyframe. So let's move it from here, because I want to lock the position here for all the parameters. Now you can see we have linear animation, obviously. Now to set an easing to a keyframe, what you can do, you can go to this icon here, set ease, motion ease. So from here you can actually get these parameters, you can change, and or you can add the values from here. Let's say 80% influence should be there, maybe here also. And it's actually setting keyframe for all the values, you can see. And if you play it back, so I have to close it actually. You can see oh, I should have applied that thing. Right. So 80 and 80 and apply and close, and you'll see the animation here. And but we don't really like this kind of view. I mean, personally I don't like it, because I want a proper graph view, which is the function editor view. For that you can go to Windows, and from there you can turn on the function editor, and you are going to get a floating window. Then you are just going to drag this thing and put in any panel that you want. I have put the function window panel here. So in function window panel you can actually see all the by default the parameters which have already have been keyed, those are showing, because the position XYZ. So you can turn on them and off them. and if you want to see the entire thing, you can click on this icon. And I know the only Z position is changing, so I can actually turn off all the other things, and from here I can actually do the same thing. I mean, you can add you can uh, you can actually select the keyframe, and I believe you can make the changes from here also, and you have to actually select here. Oh no, you can change the values from here also, but I'm going to just simply use these handles that I like. So I'm going to add the values. By the way, if you want to add a precise value, then you can use this window. So now we are going to get this kind of easing. Now let's say we need to add some the skewing, the stretching also. So here at the start we need to add some stretching, and for that what I'm going to do is the Y scale I'm going to bring it down, so it's not actually following the um, pivot point. So let's see why. Okay, it should. So if I do this, it is, but it somehow it is following this parameter. So uh, I believe for that I have to change the pivot point from here. If you are facing this kind of issue, you can do it from here. By the way, if you don't do that, if you change from the from the transformation tool, then you can manually change it. Or let's say, so that's an obvious solution, but let's say you are facing any kind of issue, you can go there and you can change it to here. So I'm going to make the pivot point somewhere here. So now I believe that I can, yes, I can change it like this, and I'm going to add some stretching here also. And I want to copy these two values. I can copy all the values, but I don't need that. Copy these two values from here, and I want to paste it here. So Control C and Control V. Okay. Let's remember, I'm not copying from this cell view, because that will copy the entire cell. You may have different drawings of different drawings in a single layer, so that will get copied, that we don't want. So that's why I have selected the particular parameter and copied it and pasted it here. Now what we are getting is something like this, but obviously it's not looking why the Y thing. Acha, this is the thing. I think I have pressed Control Z and this information was not there. And also I need to make some change, because when the ball is going down, it should not be stretched before it's hitting the ground. So let's select the scale, let's turn off all the other things, and if I select the scale Y and Z direction, I'm sorry, Y and Z scale, and I can select this parameter to get this in a full view. And actually what we can do is we can make the change, and we know that it should not be like this. Like when it is coming here, it is actually 0, there is no change at all. So that same thing should happen here. So what I'm going to do is I can actually make this keyframe, I can actually select both of the keyframe and make it linear, hold keyframe, stop motion keyframe. That means the value is going to be same till here, and then suddenly when it is touching the ground, the ball is going to be stretched. You can see. Okay. So this is basically the keyframe interpolation, and it is a little bit handy than OpenToon here, because in OpenToon to open the function editor or the graph editor view, there is it takes quite a bit of clicks here and there, and but you know, it's just a preference, because if you get comfortable there, it's not a problem. um, so this is basically the interpolation. I hope there is no problem, I mean there is no questions about this. And so let's move on to the next thing. Okay, the shift and trace option that I haven't covered yet, and I'm gonna do that late today. So the layering, the basic keyframing, and interpolation, drawing substitute drawings, I mean making extra drawings and X sheet, I've covered that all. Now two more things that I need to cover, which is the deformation tool, and the another thing is the shape morphing, which is the auto in between tool in OpenToons. So let me write it down. राइट वही तो भूल गया, वही छोड़ रहा। So to start the rigging, I mean basically the parenting. um, so let's turn off this thing, this layer, and let's create a new layer, and I'm going to actually make a simple hand type of joint. Like I'm going to create 3 new layers. One is this for the upper arm, maybe this is the upper arm. I'm going to create another one for the lower arm, and let's say another one for the hand. So this is the hand. Okay, so we have these 3 layers. So we have this 3 layer, and we want to create a parent-child relationship in order to rig this thing. So let's give this these 3 layers exposure of 30 frames. So I can select all this thing. Okay, I cannot. And so let's go there, and yes, I can drag it from here. F5. So how do we parent here? Unfortunately, we are not having the full version of ToonBoom, so the premium version. In this advanced version, we don't get a schematic view, which is the node view. So here we have to do it in the layer panel. And how to do it? You are just going to simply, you can drag and drop on each other, like this one. Let's say this one, this is the upper arm. So up, down, and the hand. So lower arm, this one should be parented to the upper arm. So I can just click here and drag and drop into the upper arm layer. You can see that this kind of it's showing that the lower arm, the lower arm is under the upper arm layer, and then we can drag the hand to the lower arm. You can see it's under this, and this layer is under this layer, and we can actually collapse the entire layer system, and we can animate this upper arm thing. So if I select the upper arm, and now if I move that, let's set the pivot point here, and if I move it, actually it is empty, so that's why maybe it's not showing me. Yes, so let's fill this thing, this layer. So if we select the upper arm layer and change the pivot point, if I'm rotate it, and you can see the entire thing is rotating. Then if I see the lower arm and set the pivot, and we can make the change, and the same for the hand also. So I'm going to change the pivot at first. So why is it not showing? Oh, this is the pivot, and I can make the change. So this is how actually you can let's go to this frame, and let's rotate the upper arm again, and let's actually set the pivot point like this. And now I'm going to move it, the lower arm, let's change the pivot point, and now I can rotate it, and if I select this, I can rotate this thing. Selecting different, these drawings are not in a yes, if you select the transform tool here, when you are selecting the drawings, automatically it is selecting the particular layer, though they are the skeleton. In this version we don't get the bone tool, but that is basically the same thing. Same thing in each and every software, you have to put the anchor point, then you see a bone structure type of thing, but that basically does the same thing. So that is the thing. Okay, this is how you parent in uh, ToonBoom. So extensively I have shown you the different type of parenting, I mean not really different type of parenting, the solar system example and all these thing in open tools. The same methodology applies here, I don't need to repeat that. So this is how you can parent it. You just need to drag and drop it here, and let's say you need to parent, you need to move the entire thing. I mean I'm basically want to show you how to add an peg bar. So you can, by clicking here, you can add a peg bar. Yes, you can add a peg bar, and peg bar is basically an empty layer, so you can again drag this thing and drop it here. Okay, the peg bar actually, when you select a layer and you create a peg bar, that actually parents the layer automatically. So if I am not selecting anything, it will gonna create a peg, and if I am selecting a particular layer, it is going to create the peg automatically. And now we can actually move the peg center, I don't know, maybe here. So now we can set a key here, and set a key here, and maybe I'm going to rotate the entire thing. So yes, okay. So this is basically the parenting in OpenToons, ToonBoom, sorry, Harmony. As we don't get any schematic view here, so we don't so there is nothing to show here, like how to, this is basic parenting. And after that I will show you the deformation tool. Let's say we don't have all these things, let's say we only have, actually let me delete all these layers. So I'm going to right click and delete it. Okay, it have deleted the entire thing, so I have to move this thing out and delete, and delete. I've deleted the drawing layer last time, I don't want to do that. So delete, let's delete this thing too. No, let's keep it. Let's delete this thing. and let's delete all the keyframes. And let's say here this is a hand or any kind of object where we need deformation or deformation animation. Deformation animation and how to do it. So at first you select the particular layer. You can actually select any of the thing, because eventually I'm going to parent the both of the thing in the deformation, but at first you select a particular layer and then you go to this toolbar, you need it, and that is the go to the toolbar menu, and there should be the deformation toolbar or that kind of thing, shape deform and that kind of thing should be there. And if you do that, this toolbar options are going to appear. Deformation, if you right click and get the deformation, and at first you have to turn on this option, okay, and then you create the bones, and sorry, first you click for the first joint, then the second joint, then the third joint, okay, and you can make fourth joint too like this, but as we know this layer is not included in this layer, not in this upper arm layer. So this circle is in the hand layer. So you can see what happened actually here. As we were doing this, it was actually creating some bone joints, which is bone you can create here from here also, and it is actually creating some bones and parenting them with each other, okay. So you can see this time look at this view in the layer panel first. Now when I creating the second, so it have the entire layer was under the bone deformation layer, and then the second one and the third one and then the fourth one, okay. So actually let me the colors बहुत ही लग रहा है आपको. Actually let's go to something like this. Let's change the red to something like this, okay. Now what you can do is actually if you are in the transform tool, if you are selecting a transform tool, now you can actually bend the layer like this, okay. And this round region, this is actually the the influence radius. If you expand this, then it's going to be I mean the bend of the radius is going to be increased. And if you turn on the render view from here, you can see that kind of nasty thing we are seeing, that noise and all, that is not actually there. And let's zoom in, okay, but there is some mesh distortion here, and I haven't find any option to change that, so that's the thing. So in order to get the animation, you have to select the transform tool, and you can change it like this. You can change the radius for the affected region. You can change this one too. So this is basically the deformation tool in ToonBoom Harmony. And now how can I parent this one to this one? So that means what I need is this bone structure to follow also to affect this ball or this layer also. So if I select any other tool rather than this transformation tool, our entire animation goes to a default position. So now I can select this hand layer and I can actually move it to under this bone to layer. So if I do that, what happened actually is, so let's go to the actually reset the entire animation. So I believe there is the option for the reset animation. uh, let's select all the thing, reset, select this one too, reset. And now if I move it to this under this bone joint, you can see the bone joint too, this is it. So you can actually, now this layer is the bone deformer is going to affect uh, the hand layer too. And it is happening because I have put this hand layer under the bone joint layer. Okay, so this is the deformation tool in ToonBoom Harmony. So this is it, the deformation tool. So this is the two type of tool, which is the basic parenting and the deformation that you can use for your character rigging. And if you are doing your character a rigged character in ToonBoom Harmony, then we are going to get an in-depth look of a bone structure. I will help you at that time if you want to create a bone structure in ToonBoom Harmony, like you have done in OpenToons. So the next thing we are going to do is morphing. And the morphing thing is basically the auto in between tool which we have in ToonBoom. So let's create a new layer and let's create a shape like this. Let's say it's a rectangular shape. So this is going to be a very basic example, and you need to apply the same color between the two objects. Okay, I have to create a new. Haven't we done that? हाँ, उसके अंदर हो गया, राइट? हाँ हाँ, डिफरेंट, हाँ. Sorry. And in the second frame, which I want to be here, I want to make an ellipse, and I have to fill it with the same color. And you can see what we have is basically two different shapes, or it may be two different drawings. Now what we can do is we can simply select all the in-betweens. I'm not going to select all the in-betweens, we'll just from the first drawing to the last, this portion, all the frames of the first drawing except from the last one. I'm going to select them, and if we right click, and then we have the morphing option here, and if we do that, it is going to create a in between. Now this problem I am facing in this OpenToon. I don't know what about the other machine. In this machine at least, it's suddenly disappearing, it's not showing the in betweens. If I click on the onion skin option, then hopefully I will see the transformation. But this is something, locha going on, because how can I say that when I create a new layer, suddenly the entire thing appears. I'm selecting the layer above, but this layer, if I select the actual layer, it's not showing. So yes, so this is basically the same morphing option. um, no changes here. You can add a few points, like if let's delete this both of this thing and let's create a new layer. Here you can actually, if I create a like a pencil, if I create a shape, and for the second drawing I'm going to create something like this, and let's say I want to make a morphing, which is the shortcut is, by the way, Alt M, and let's create a new empty layer again to view it. And now you can see obviously it didn't happen, and but there is few thing, I mean, that you can actually explore, which is called the, if you go to this tool, morphing tool, which is the tool properties, the contour hint, you can make a contour hint. We actually are using pencil line. It is supposed to make these two positions, supposed to make them intact, so it shouldn't. So again I'm not getting any display, so, and it's not really happening, it's not working for me. I mean, it's not working here. I have tried this thing the entire day today, but it is not happening. Okay, but this option is there, so I'm just showing you. And after this, the only thing which is left today is the shift and trace. So let's say, let's delete again all this thing, and let's click a new layer. Okay, हुआ नहीं क्या? Okay, this one. Let's create a new layer, and let's say I have this kind of a shape, stretched, and in the next drawing I have let's say this kind of a shape, and I need to make a perfect in between or whatever, and but this shape is somewhere here. So you face this this kind of situation quite a lot when you are drawing manually. I mean, you're drawing a hand-drawn animation, then you do the shift and trace process. So I need a in between, and I also need to match both of the shapes. So let's change the color. Actually, I also need to so that's what I need. I need a in between with a perfect in between shape. So I'm going to actually delete this frame because I need a new one, or I can just create a duplicate of the previous drawing and delete the shape. So that's the same thing, and you can see both of the shapes are there. Now if I turn on the onion skin and I try to make a shape, that might not be perfect, and for that we have the shift and trace option. For that you have to go to the X sheet, and let's actually delete this column, and then there you can see if this is the first drawing, this is the second drawing, and the third drawing is the in between one, and here we want to use the shift and trace process. So go there, and there should be this option, I mean. Okay, if we select here, you right click, and then you have the option send to disk. So if you do that and go to the drawing mode, you can see that this this window actually appears. Okay, this one was not there, but it appears. And if you do that, the first drawing I have done that, send to, I'm not, this is not, I have not done the first drawing. So go to the first drawing, right click, send to disk, the first drawing here. Go to the second drawing, right click, add to disk, the second drawing have been added here. Now what I'm going to do is, at first I need to turn on the onion skin. Now I am going to check this option, which is going to enable me to do the shift and trace. Now I'm going to select this option, which is going to manipulate the drawings. So I'm going to click on this option, then we can see we get this peg bar options, and this is now I can actually move the drawing. I can select the previous and the whatever drawing I want, I can actually move them together. It's not moving the actual drawing, and if I select on this icon, actually I can rotate it, or let's say I want to change the scaling, we can do that. So I'm going to rotate it, then I'm going to move it, maybe something like this. I mean, this is just an example, and I'm going to rotate the thing like this, and I want in between. So then I'm going to go to the brush tool, and this frame, in this frame I want to add in between. So I'm going to draw the in between, which is going to be something like this. And if we go back to now, if we disable the shift and trace mode, and you can see in the third frame we have got the drawing. Now we can actually move it by using the selection tool to the position it should be. So this is basically the shift and trace process. Okay. When you are going to do it for the first time, there is a lot of clicks here and there. You can call me, I will show you the process, but this thing you can do it here. So this is it for today. Any question? Huh? Play. We wanted to play. Okay, stop. Play. Let's turn off this thing. Okay, second में नहीं किया मैंने. Okay, then I'm just going to cut it, and I'm going to paste it here. I thought I have done it in the right. So I'm just going to cut the cell from the. How can I copy a drawing? Cut the drawing object, and I'm going to paste the drawing object. Oh, I'm in the drawing mode, sorry. Huh. So this is it. Okay. अरे यार क्या हो रहा है यार? अभी होना. ठीक है? डायरेक्टली अनियन स्किन करके कहाँ पे?